Right, my shit's boring, but we're gonna do it anyway. So, all right, first story up here is China closed its last pro-democratic newspaper in Hong Kong. This is the Apple Daily, and it was started in 1995, 2 years after the UK had returned control of Hong Kong to China. And after 26 years, it has been shut down by the Chinese government. The authorities froze their assets, seized journalists' computers, and charged two of the top execs under the national security law, which was designed to crush, really was designed to crush dissent in the city. And this is really important to note because this is a government that is taking down basically free speech because it dissented against the Chinese government's narratives and was very critical of China. The officials allege that the Apple Daily used news as a tool to challenge China's national security, and police charged two executives, including its editor in chief, Ryan Law, with conspiring to collude with foreign forces. The belief is that over the course of the last couple of years, about 30 or 40 articles that were extremely critical of the Chinese government were helpful in creating sanctions being brought up against brought up against China. So this is really kind of an issue of like the state says, hey, you're standing against me, and we don't really like what you're saying. We don't really want to hear your criticism, and we're not going to take it anymore. So even though this isn't the first thing that's happened, they've been arresting people, and there have been some other sketchy dealings. The rest of the 800 members of their staff are on Thursday are going to be out of a job, and that puts an end to at least 26 years of the Apple Daily. This is a significant sign of a momentum shift. Within the Chinese government, and really they're just kind of putting their foot down and saying, they've already quelled a lot of protests throughout the year, jailed, arrested, even some people were shot and killed. So this is definitely it's a scary moment when you see this because it's really just like the extinguishing of free speech. So people who take that for granted or don't think that opinion should be heard in the United States, that we shouldn't talk about things, pay attention to this because all around the world people lose their rights of speech and their ability to talk openly without fear of persecution or some type of harm coming to them. So, and because in addition to this, over the last like couple of years, many of the journalists and stuff have either quit or kind of reserved themselves in their reporting because they were afraid of repercussions from the government, because they were afraid for their lives and their families' lives and what would happen. So this is definitely some big news coming out of China. Um, you know, it's the argument there is that like it's against the state and they're being critical of the state, but you think about America, their entire channels, entire media companies who are devoted to nothing but shit talking a president or an administration or a policy. And we here really understand and value that opinions should be considered, everyone should be heard, and I think that's how it should be around the world. So I personally don't like this. I don't think this is a good step for the Chinese people, for China as a whole. But the Chinese state runs a lot of the show, so they're going to make that decision. And it's definitely, as some people in China have described it, as reported and interviewed, as a dark day, a very very dark day for free speech in China. So
This
Well, I'm
just
not taking my freedom of speech for granted. It's
yeah,
this is just more and more news of China just they're taking control. They're using their iron fist and they're not messing
China has a
around.
goal. China has a goal. The Chinese government has a goal, and it's going to reach that goal. And it's not going to let anyone stand in its way, whether it be a foreign power or whether it be in their own country, right? A national force of their own citizens. They're not going to let anybody stand in the way. They don't want to hear dissent. They don't want to hear people spin the narratives. Because remember, we talked about I think last week, China was doing like a rehashing of its history to correct any fallacies in the history of China, make sure you kind of set the record straight. So you really can't have free speech and people being critical of your government, of your officials and your actions, and still expect to be able to rewrite history and maintain control because there are pockets of truth and holes in their logic in their history, and there is plenty of track record of not only governments, not only China, but governments like China, communist regimes, and other fascist regimes, other things like this, who've undergone this same process. So this isn't something new throughout history, but it's definitely, I feel like it's almost a step back away from democracy and a heavier push towards the state and communism, and like we are an entire unit, whether you like it or not. This is where we're going. It's not really up to you. You're no longer driving. We make the rules as the head of state. You follow them or else. And not just like an or else of like, oh, you might get shit talk, bad things will happen to you, like or else your freedoms will disappear. You will live in a bigger state of fear if you try to step up to something bigger than you. And that I think is very unsettling.
Yeah, no.
uh,
I mean, definitely definitely happy to live where I'm living right now.